Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya. Lessons for Life from Swami Jagadatmananji's inspiring book Learn to Live, Volume 2, Chapter 5, Transformation Through Prayer. The inspiring life of Brother Lawrence, a great devotee of God, is described here in a most fascinating and appealing manner. The title of the episode is Practice of the Presence of God. Brother Lawrence's life is a striking example which shows that practicing of the presence of God leads to God realization. Lawrence was born in an ordinary family. He grew up among common people. He was not very efficient in his work, but he had an extraordinary quality. He had firm faith in God. This trust in God and thirst for God made him a great saint. This trust in God, that is his faith in God and thirst for God, longing for God, yearning for God, made him a great saint. Lawrence realized the greatness of God when he was 18 years old. The incident that led to this was very ordinary. In winter, he saw the trees, which after shedding all leaves had become bare. The moment he realized that with God's grace, after a few days, the bare trees would bear lush green leaves, his mind turned towards God. He began his spiritual life by reading books, but religious treatises containing philosophical debates only enhanced his dilemma, his confusion. He did not have much use for mere scholarship. Keeping aside the books, Lawrence said, quote, renouncing everything for God's sake, craving only for God's love, I lived as if in the whole world only God and me existed. Unquote. This may look simple, but Lawrence wants, quote, let me tell the truth. For 10 years I had to undergo great hardship. Many times I stumbled and fell, but I persisted with my efforts. For a time it looked as if all creatures, reason, God himself were against me, and that only faith for me. Unquote. But Lawrence had made up his mind. Whatever might happen, whatever difficulties may be in store for me in the days ahead, let me do everything hereafter only for the sake of God's love. His life was a shining illustration of the message of the Gita. Whatever you do, do it for me. Brother Lawrence says we should do everything for the sake of God's love. He was happy when he could pick up a straw, a blade of grass from the ground for the love of God, seeking Him alone and nothing else, not even His gifts. Lawrence did his work every day for the sake of God, remembering God's greatness and praying with yearning. Lawrence says, as I was anxious that my life could be spent in difficulties and travels, one day my soul started experiencing inexplicable joy and peace. I suddenly found myself transformed. A great inward peace took hold of my troubled soul. My mind was brought to a focus in a place of peace. My mind was brought to a focus in a place of peace. Since then, I have walked before God in simplicity and faith, in humility and love. Thus he describes the joy of being in the presence of God. Nicholas Herman was the earlier name of Brother Lawrence. He had been in the army. As he was not very efficient in his work, he had invited the wrath of his superiors. Being a misfit, he left the army and joined a monastery in Paris, France. She had gone there with the hope that God would reform him. He was physically deformed. Being lame, he worked in the kitchen. But it was not to his liking. Initially, the hustle and bustle of the kitchen irritated him. Sometimes he had to work much beyond his ability and physical strength. But he did his duty for the sake of God, not for 1 or 2 years, but for 60 long years. Before undertaking any task, he would offer an ardent prayer, an intense prayer. O Lord, you are so close to me. I am performing all my duties according to your will. Without your help, I am helpless. Father, let me pray that I should never be removed from your presence. He also reveals the secret of obtaining the help of God. Lawrence says we should communicate with God in a simple manner in solitude. We should speak to God in a guileless, natural and simple manner. Whenever we get an opportunity to do something good, let us pray so that it can be a success. Lawrence's own words speak of the high mental state he had attained through prayer. Lawrence continues, my hours of work and hours of prayer were not different. Even when many people asked for different things in the kitchen simultaneously, even in the midst of the din, I could concentrate and pray with perfect equanimity of mind and felt the presence of God. Brother Lawrence was a devotee, a bhakta, as well as a karma yogi. When he said, make up your mind, make a wholehearted sacrifice, he did not mean that one should renounce everything and seek the solitude of wilderness. One should not hesitate to do even trifling chores. Lawrence said, God never considers the magnitude and type of work, but observes our love and devotion with which it is done. Our spiritual progress does not depend on the change of place of work. The best way is to stay where we are and do all our duties for the love of God. Even a learned man cannot speak so authoritatively about God like the one who has had the direct experience of the ultimate truth. The words of the holy men who have realized God touch the heart of men. For years together, man may go on arguing and reasoning in vain, but God reveals subtle spiritual truths and His glory to the simple and humble devotees. Lawrence says with humility, but also with firmness, with conviction, now there is no question of believing. I see God every moment. I no longer believe, for I can see and experience God. Knock at the door, keep on knocking, and I tell you that if you are not discouraged, He will open it in due time and give all of a sudden what He has withheld for so long. Thus, Brother Lawrence encourages spiritual seekers. Who can ignore such an earnest call? Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.